All right, welcome back. So we have not covered Miles Morales Spider-Man here by Cody Ziegler in quite some time. So there's this arc that is currently going on right now where Rabble is back, and one of her creations here called the Assessor is back as well, which ultimately here leads to Miles needing help from Peter Parker Spider-Man, who shows up here with this brand new suit, who is finally back here on Earth. So what happens here is that this brings us back to a little bit of a flashback during the time here of the gang war, where we saw Rabble messing with what is called Beyond Tech. Now, the Beyond Tech here that Rabble is messing with, it comes from the Beyond Corporation, which is basically a front here for Beyonder avatars, which I really won't get into here for the sake of this video. But their tech isn't just advanced gadgets here, it's reality warping science that's already broken people before. Most famously here, Ben Reilly, when he was working as Spider-Man for Beyond, they wiped and rewired his memories here, and he eventually fell into their experimental psycho-reactive goo, and then came out here as the villain Chasm. So the specific tech here that she stole is an adaptive memory editing device that she duplicated. And while she was digging through the Beyond files, there was this sophisticated fragmented AI voice that she kept on hearing. What she then later found out is that this AI machine could properly assess here, as she says, their effort to kill Spider-Man. So when Hobgoblin here is asking her the question, do you really think it's smart for you to be messing with this AI? She mentions how its consciousness has been partitioned across nearly 24 pieces of stolen Stark servers. Putting it back together here will take some time. Now, Rabble's powers here, just in case you don't know, is that she has a technopathy, or technopathy, whichever way you want to pronounce it, meaning that she's able to speak and control machines here with tech, right? But ultimately, time wasn't on their hands here, or I should say on their side, because they had to pause this little science project here because on camera what they saw is that Miles Morales and Miss Marvel were heading directly their way. And as they leave, as they hop up out of the building and the building blows up here, what we see is that this AI starts to reconfigure here. We see 74%, we then see 87% complete, and then towards the very end here, it goes into error. So ultimately you would think that that would be the end of it. But what happens here is that at the very end of this all, we see here where a light comes back on and then says fragmentation complete, uploading. And what that does next here is that this brings us back here to present time out in Misty Knight's hideout, where no one was around at this current moment. So what happens here is that this AI, the Assessor, wakes up, who immediately starts assessing, compiling and configuring information. And after looking here at a few of Miles's recent encounters, the Assessor deems its research to be complete and declares it time to finish exactly what they started. So later on, what we see here is that Miles is going to meet up here with his therapist, because after all, the things that Miles has been through here recently, you know, being a vampire, dealing with a god work here because of a Nazi, him and his sister here getting thrown into Marvel's current Ultimate Universe here, where he had to face off against a few of the members of the Makers Council. Now here having the responsibility of some of the origin boxes from the Ultimate Universe, but dude needs a therapy session. So he shows up here to a scheduled appointment, and he sees that Dr. Kwan, well, she's currently not here. So he hangs out for a little bit. But homeboy was surprised as heck when Dr. Kwan finally arrived, because she showed up here with his arch nemesis, Raneem, aka Rabble. So this dude's chest starts locking up. Homeboy can't breathe for a second. His heart is racing due to all this trauma that he's experienced here with Rabble before. And then, man, when Rabble catches a glimpse of this dude, yo, she gets pissed. And I mean, after all her villainy, right, Miles was the one that got her thrown into prison, but it's way deeper than that, right? Because she blames Miles for everything bad that has happened in her life. Because when she applied here to Brooklyn Visions Academy, due to there only being 40 slots left, she lost the lottery here to be able to get in, but Miles, he was able to get in. And then later on, she found out that this dude was Spider-Man. Man, that just added fuel to the fire. And what's going on here with Raneem, why she's with Dr. Kwan in the first place, is because part of her rehabilitation right now is that she's trying to help her work through some of these things, some of that resentment here that she has towards Miles. But this situation right here is not going to help. So here, Miles is saying to himself, he's like, feel the heat bubbling up? My brain is screaming. breathe, relax. But then he's like, nope, my body doesn't listen. And listen, Rabble, she wants all the smoke. And she comes out and she's like, you will pay what is owed, Spider-Man, as she charges on in. So then Miles is like, all right then, come on, do the damn thing. But that is when Dr. Quan steps in, and Cody Ziegler uses this as a moment here to remind us that Dr. Quan is now a Hulk, aka Powerlift. So she's like, listen, ain't none of this mess here in my office, as she holds both of them back. And Miles is familiar here with Powerlift because of the God War. But, you know, Rab was like, what in the world? So Dr. Quan, she steps in, she tries to have them calm down, to work through their emotions and their feelings. Miles starts to apologize. He's like, sorry, Doc, this is just a lot, you know what I mean? Sorry for having a reaction to the girl who blew up my house and tried to kill all my friends and family. You know, he feels somewhat justified here. And in Reneem's defense here, she was like, I was going through a lot back then, and I'm working on some things. To which Dr. Quan says, you know, she's right, Miles. She's made some great progress under my care. You both have. So maybe, why don't you both try to use the skills here I've taught you instead of trying to kill each other? Unless, of course, you like Powerlift to negotiate this. So as mentioned before here, what we also find out from Dr. Quan is that Mayor Luke Cage here and Misty Knight has placed Reneem under her supervision of following the gang war incident. She talks about how she's made great progress, same as Miles Morales has done as well. Miles, even being the bigger person here, apologizes to Reneem for attacking her, to which Rab was like, yeah, perhaps you should try telling that to someone who she would have completed that sentence had she not then heard a voice, a strange voice. Because in that moment, what happens here is that Miles' spider sense starts going off, the lights shut off, and then when they turn to see who this is, who shows up, the assessor with an actual form. And immediately he's like, could it be that I have outgrown you, Reneem? Which is when she's like, assessor? How? You never finish reconfiguring. And immediately he starts assessing Miles. He's like, okay, this is interesting. Increased muscle mass here, increased speed, increased confidence. You've had some improvements since our last mission. And then also assesses that he has a different suit. And just in case that you do not know here, Miles does have a vibranium suit here, which is something that he got to help fight his vampirism from the Black Panther, which he so graciously let him keep after he was cured. So then Powerlift, she immediately here goes on the attack, and she's like, you know, I'm really sorry here. I just don't like the way that you're speaking to my client. And then the assessor, he's like, I don't want to mess with this, right? He's like, he starts to assess, gamma, mutate detected, immediate removal recommended, correcting now. And what he does here is that he sends in these drones, to which that pisses off Rabble, because she's like, my drone? She's like, those are my machines. Those are mine to wield. I built them, spoken with them before I could even walk. To which the assessor is like, and yet they answered to me. But Powerlift is insulted. She's like, these? It's gonna take more than these drones to hurt me. To which the assessor's like, yeah, I agree with you, but your removal to your secondary facility is all that is required. And with that, she's teleported on up out of there. And then closes the portal behind her, because as the assessor puts it, we don't have the resources to deal with this gamma anomaly, and how separation was the best method. But then also what starts to work against Dr. Quan is some of the protocols that she's put in place here for whatever she does turn into Powerlift, which immediately tells her, please relax. Have you tried breathing? And then starts to deploy those cool jams just to help her to calm down. So either way, she's going to be stuck there for a while. Now back with the assessor, he's telling Rabble and Miles, well, really Miles, we see no need to fight, as we simply seek to finish what my predecessor in Reneem started. Reneem is still trying to fight back to gain control here of her machines. And for a moment here, it seems as if though she does, because the assessor is like, interesting development. Which is when Miles also tries to seize this opportunity, and then he throws his webs here on the assessor. To which the assessor is like, analyzing. Vibranium lace webbing, a curious upgrade indeed. And then analyzes some more. Vibranium lace suit, increased power output via bioelectrical augmentation. Interesting. And the fact that he's saying this, or it's saying this here while getting the crap kicked out of it, is funny to me. When Reneem, she charges on in, like, assessor is just like a dad. He's like, listen, there's no need for all this foolishness. And then it says assessment complete. It mentions how his review is unimpressed. And this dude comes out here with 2 arms coming out of the body that yokes up and grabs Redeem and Miles, then proceeds to slam both of them on the ground. And Miles, realizing that they need to regroup, he tells Redeem, he's like, we got to get on up out of here. He's too strong. We got to go. But Redeem is like, no, he's not going to have my work, and then starts to activate the solar flare protocol. Now, an assessor is like, whoa, what the hell is this? That's when Miles comes in and is like, it's called a distraction, and then Venom punches this dude. So then what Miles does here is that he camouflages himself and then also takes Redeem with him, who is also camouflaged as well. And that is what allows them to be able to escape. And after all this, the assessor puts itself back together here, reforms, and then conducts its review while saying the experiment can now begin. So we see next here Redeem and Miles like diving through some building here. And Redeem is pissed because she's like, no, I'm not going to show you gratitude for saving my life. We ran like cowards instead of facing our enemy. To which Miles is like, yo, an enemy that you resurrected, just because you got a death wish, it doesn't mean that I do, Redeem. To which she says in Arabic, coward. But then here she notices something going on with his suit. To which Miles mentioned, he's like, yeah, the self-repair doesn't usually take this long. The assessor must have messed with it when he grabbed us. But what's more intriguing here to Redeem is that she's like, I tried talking with your suit, but it's like it doesn't want me to listen. Tell me why, Miles. To which, of course, Miles is like, yeah, I'm not going to explain that to you. To which she just sees as a challenge. She's like, I will find out one way or another, Miles. Which then leads to this natural blowout that we expected to happen. So they get into this little shouting match here, to which Miles is like, yo, what the heck is your deal? Like, how long are you going to continue to keep holding on to this grudge? To which she's like, as long as I draw breath. To which he's like, I'm sorry about what happened, but it wasn't really my fault. To which he's like, I don't care if it wasn't your fault. You won and my family still paid the price. This shop is what's left of my family's legacy. To which he's like, I couldn't control that. To which Redeem is like, I guess I should say what's left of my family. All because you and your precious little system couldn't recognize real potential, real gifts. You don't understand, Miles, and you will never understand. All you do is pity me. Poor Redeem Rashad, the little orphan girl who couldn't catch a break. And just in case you don't know, which you probably assume here by her saying little orphan girl, yes, both of her parents are dead. And it was her father's wish that she would be able to get in here to Brooklyn Visions Academy. But as she continues on, she's like, I was done being pitied here. So you know what I did? I started digging for secrets, the kind only machines would know. To which Miles is like, all right, what the hell did you do? To which she says, she's like, this city is alive with information. And I found the one thing that hurt you as much as I did, the assessor. And I remade it better, bigger, stronger, smarter. Because I wanted to watch it dissect you with my own eyes. I wanted to tell it to take you apart piece by piece. To which Miles is like, okay, well, where exactly did that get you, Redeem? Because by my math, you played with powers that you didn't understand, and now you're in here with me. All them smarts, all that power, and you're still right here beside me. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you're the problem? And I gotta say, this sounds like a brother-sister conversation to me, but either way. Which of course now naturally pisses her off a little bit more, and Miles is like, okay, you want to fight me to see this through to the end? Then help me stop the assessor, and I promise you, I'll give you your shot. So for now, the fire is quenched, and while Redeem goes to prepare, well, Miles reaches out here to a friend. We don't know who that friend is. So then back out here, when we catch up on the assessor and what homeboy's been doing. He's of course trying to find the location here of Redeem and Miles. And he assesses here that there is a 95% probability that the subjects, Redeem Rashad and Miles Morales, will form an alliance. To which the failure rate of said alliance is about 42%. And then it begins to assess Miles's vibranium suit. Well, first, it confirms that it is a vibranium mesh. The reveals that the suitable host shell is now confirmed. And then the acquisition here of a new biome beginning. And its main focus here is the acquisition of the vibranium material. That is the utmost important, as prolonged survivability is desired. But at the same time, supplementary materials are now nearing completion. Subjects operating under the proverb, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And the only logical conclusion here is to present more enemies. And that's when we see more assessors. And just for the sake of the say, I'm going to call them assessor bots. So when we pick back up here on Miles and Raneem, we see that now Rabble, she got a new suit. And as she puts it, she's like, all right, the assessor wishes to find us, then let it be greeted by the envoy of death. And I won't lie to you, this suit is kind of fire. So next is trying to figure out here how to stop and destroy the assessor. Miles makes the observation how he's usually tied to a server, but this version is different. He shrugged off his venom punch like it was nothing. To which Raneem mentions, he's like, yeah, reinforcing its body with my hard light tech was the first improvement that I made. To which, of course, Miles recognizes, yeah, that's beyond tech. To which she's like, naturally, and he's like, Dios mío. But before they could continue here on their concocting their plan, well, guess who shows up? The assessor himself. And it mentions here how the final experiment draws to its end. And just like that, round 2, fight. And I gotta say, man, with this fight, I just love some of the weapons here that Rabble uses in her fight. It's really good to see. One of the things that she does here is that she has her own version of a venom blast, which of course is not really a venom blast. We get the point, but it just looks quite similar here to what Miles would do. To which Miles mentioned, he's like, you stole my venom blast too? To which he's like, I improved it. But then it's here. When Father Assessor comes in and is like, children, that is quite enough. And then slams him on the ground again. And I'm like, yo, how many arms does this man have? So when Miles is asking the question, like, yo, what kind of upgrades did you give this dude? Rabble's like, none that we cannot handle. To which the assessor is like, okay, well, let us put that here to the test. And then proceeds to say, I would thank you, my resurrector. You have given us the ultimate gift, freedom of thought. And what a marvelous gift to have been bestowed. But still, we find it to be lacking one thing. Yes, and as he holds up Miles, he's like, yes, I've spent much processing power trying to understand what has changed within you. And we think that we know. It's your suit. It holds the answers that we need. In the conclusion, complete dissection here is necessary. Now, Rabble, she took offense to this. She's like, the killing of Spider-Man will be the honor that I alone shall hold. And this dude's just like, away. And with that here, the assessor bots just knock her out of the way. As the assessor says, my attention is required elsewhere. So she gets knocked into like this little breakfast spot, this little diner. Well, it's nighttime. This diner, this restaurant, whatever. My goodness, coffee place. It was right there on the thing, the coffee place. Leave me alone. All right. But the funniest thing to me, man, is that while she lands on the ground, this dude right here, I absolutely love this, Cody. He's like, it's always something in this city. That was too good. So some poor soul man tries to help her out and then he gets blasted. The assessor bots come in and it's like, your part has been played, Raneem, and your gifts are no longer required. So she's like, all right, I will show you the extent of my gifts. I am the envoy of death and my reach is wide. And as the assessor bots say, Raneem, our numbers are countless. You know you can't stop. To which she's like, I know you are machines and you can be broken as easily as you were built. My regret is not rebuilding you. My regret is that you were not programmed to feel pain, though this look of defeat will do for now. But then in this moment, what one of the assessor bots does here is that it uses her emotions against her because it pulls up a picture here of her father. As it says, are you so full of rage at your failures, Raneem, that you would bring ruin to your father too? Perhaps I was mistaken in asking you to share your gifts, little one. Pressure will make a diamond of you yet. And that was enough to give the assessor the time that he needed. And as Miles here is being yoked up and being held and making these quips, the assessor's like, my predecessors were smart, but fragile and ineffective. Raneem was correct in her thinking. Storing our mind in a server was a design flaw that needed correcting. We found more security in the form of this hard, light body. The durability is leagues above our previous form, but still, it has its limitations. Raneem was quite innovative in her design, but she's only a child. We need something more sustainable, something only the best minds on Earth could re-engineer. And it's here where they begin to start wrapping around here and trying to pull off the suit off of Miles. And Miles can feel the suit locking up. It feels like his whole body here is on fire. And while he's doing this, like the assessor's like, how we missed your screams, Miles. If we could feel joy, we would no doubt feel boundless amounts of it right now. But Miles, he's trying to reinforce his suit, but he can't even really tell the difference between the suit or the assessor at this point. And this kind of confused the assessor, because it's like, you resist? You wish to prolong your suffering? And I'm like, man, it's just because you don't understand the heart of a tiger, a hero. All right, I digress. Let's move on. But then the assessor is like, all right, well, then let us put the durability of you and this suit to the test. Employ combat protocols. And it's here where Miles mentions the suit's compromise. Every strike hurts more than the last. Need to think, figure something out. I just need, oh God, no, they're gonna. And it's here where the assessor bots come in. They throw him on the ground. As they say, conclusion, suitable, environment for new routines. And Miles, like, he's out of it. He's about to go unconscious. He's coughing. He's like, ribs are gone, shoulder dislocated, can barely breathe, feeling so tired. Stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. I'm sorry, y'all. That 100% made me think of Marlin in the Nemo movie when he was trying to save Dory from the jellyfish. Listen, I got 4 kids. I've seen that movie hundreds of times at this point. But then Miles is like, oh man, please God, not like this. Like, someone, please help. And then it's here where we see a familiar text box that comes in and says, a prayer asked, a web plucked, a miracle requested. And yes, we have Anansi back, as he says, and thus the spider god of stories would answer your call. If one champion will not do, then perhaps 2 shall suffice. Yes. And as Miles asks, he's like, yo, Anansi, what did you do? To which Anansi is like, a favor was owed, so my debt repaid. And as the assessor is like, analysis impossible, calculation error, Anansi says, fight well, my champions, my Spider-Man. And then we see this voice that comes in that says, you're not gonna believe this, but I think I took a wrong turn at the Baxter building. And listen, I absolutely love this suit. Now, if you've been following here with the Amazing Spider-Man run, you know where this suit is coming from. Actually, if you want us to, we can kind of catch up on that story. Just leave it down below in the comments if you want us to. So here he comes in and kicks the assessor straight in the face, crack, and then absolutely starts putting the meats here on these assessor bots. Man, listen, Peter was doing his thing here. And Miles is all too happy, man, just see Spider-Man back, to have Peter back, his old mentor. But Miles does have this question. He's like, God, I'm so happy to see you. I've seen that you've met Anansi, to which Peter is like, yeah, we go way back, but also your suit. To which Miles is like, my dude, your suit. To which here Peter mentions, he's like, technically it's more a partner than a suit, but I'll catch you up later. Once again, if you want us to catch you up on that story, let us know. But it's here where the assessor comes in and is like, all right, an unforeseen interruption, one that will be thoroughly corrected. We have been too patient, spiders. No, too cautious, for fear of damaging too much of the subject. Let we miss out on valuable insights. Review, perimeters of engagement adjusting. Conclusion, full engagement unavoidable. Reconfiguration complete. Combat measures engaged. To which both Spider-Men say, if a fight with the Spider-Man is what you want, then a fight with the Spider-Man is what you'll get. So what do y'all think? Great to see these two teaming up together again. Also, I gotta say, love the fact, I know it doesn't fully count, but I know all of us were saying, man, like, we want to see Anansi also with Peter Parker as well. It's not the same, but it's nice to see they keep kind of plucked him here and brought him into this story. Let us know down below if you would like us here to kind of catch up on the Amazing Spider-Man story. Happy to do so. Also, there was this God of War arc here where Anansi basically threw Miles Morales into it. We do have a playlist here. Actually, we have the full video down below if you want to catch up. I'll leave that here right on the screen. Don't forget to leave a like here on this video. Subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.